And welcome back to the podcast, everybody. So I was on a buddy's podcast a while back, Logan Manzanares, his podcast called The Origin Story, where they bring on entrepreneurs and investors and get them to dive into the origin story. And in that conversation, we got on the topic of identities, and it was a really good conversation because when you first step, regardless of entrepreneurship or investing or whatever you're doing in life, there's going to be seasons of change where you go from identifying as one thing to, growing and progressing towards your greatness. And that's going to inevitably lead you towards acquiring new identities, just like wearing a hat. And sometimes you need to take off a hat to put on another hat. Otherwise you look silly because you're wearing too many hats. But this is really, really hard identity shifts because one, you have to overcome your own internal inertia. For me personally, one of the hardest identity shifts that I had to go through, well, there's two I'm going to share with you here. Number one was when I stopped climbing as much. And I still climbed, but I was no longer a climber. And that's a subtle distinction, but in that subtle distinction, there's an enormous amount of difference. Because I was no longer identifying as a climber. It was not who I was at my core. I did not wake up every morning and think I am a climber. I was just a guy that liked to climb. And that was a really hard realization because my network, my friends, my relationships, my means for communicating and engaging with the world was born through the lens of being a climber. And so leaving that behind was very difficult for me for a while. One, because you have to first let that identity go. And that's almost like a mourning process. It can be very traumatic and be very hard. Number two is the people around you, even after you've let your identity go and you say, I'm no longer this thing, the world around you still sees you as that because you have so much forward momentum and inertia. And it's very hard to change people's opinions overnight. And so the only way to do that is through consistent action over time. And so there becomes this gap during this transitional period of your life where the identity you are acquiring for your new self and you're moving towards is not the identity that the rest of the world associates with you. And in that delta, there can be a lot of frustration and disappointment and feelings of you just don't understand, or what are you doing with your life? And this is why, if you leave your W-2 and you're going out to start your business, you are reforging this identity in your own mind. But this is why the people around you, your loved ones, are looking at you what are you doing? You're crazy. Why are you leaving this thing? You're not an entrepreneur. You're not an investor. That's not you. You're going to fail. And that makes sense why they would think this, because you haven't done it before. And they want the best for you. They don't want you to die out there in the wilderness. And so, of course, they're concerned. They want you to be consistent and do the thing that you've already shown that you can do. But if you want to achieve your greatness, then you need to have forward progress. You need to be moving towards it. And that means that you're going to go through these periods of transition into change. And if you do it properly, you're going to be changing into something better over time. Now, the other big transition that I had to make in my life, and this is what I wanted to share with you guys today in this podcast, was the transition when I was younger from thinking of my ADHD as a weakness, as the thing that was holding me back, as the reason why I couldn't focus, why I had bad relationships, why I was always getting fired. It was the reason I wasn't succeeding was because I was different. My mind was broken. It wasn't my fault. My biology was holding me back. You couldn't have done any better, right? It was my weakness. And it wasn't until I realized that in everything in life, in every belief that we have, in every situation, every skill set, every relationship, everyone is a coin. And what I mean by that is every coin has two sides. And as soon as you realize that you get to put the coin on whichever side you want, the better. So for ADHD, what that meant for me was one side of the coin was my weakness. It was the thing that was holding me back. It was the reason I wasn't succeeding. And I could cling to that. And I could put that coin on that side. And I would be right. And in fact, for many years, I was right. It was my weakness. Or I could take that coin and I could flip it. And on the other side, that ADHD is no longer a weakness. It's now a superpower. It's the reason I succeed. It's the reason I can do what others cannot. It's the reason for my success. And when you realize that in all things in life. It exists as this duality, this yin and this yang, this good and this bad, this positive, this negative. And you get to choose how you view that coin. And how you view that coin is going to directly impact the results that you achieve. Because if you think that your ADHD is a weakness, if you think your whatever is a weakness, if you think whatever, your relationships, your network, your upbringing, your dad, your mom, your significant other, if they're the reason that is holding you back, if they're the weakness, the reason that you're not succeeding, then that is in fact going to be exactly what happens. But if you turn it around and you say, my upbringing is the reason I'm going to succeed, is because I have this chip on my shoulders, because I know what it looks like to be in hard times, because I have more gumption, I have more grit, and I'm willing to do what it takes. Like, I'm going to win because I have no choice. That is my strength, my superpower. And that is the side of the coin that you can fixate on. And so wherever you are in life and whatever you're struggling with, I find it to be a helpful framework to just take a step back and ask myself, what's the other side of this coin? What would it look like for me to turn this around, to flip it? Because Rumi, the poet, said it best, I think, when he said, that which you seek is seeking you. That which you seek is seeking you. If you're seeking your greatness is seeking you. If you're seeking reasons and excuses for why you will not succeed, then those will find you. And so you need to be very intentional about which side of the coin that you're looking on. Are you looking at the side of the coin where your circumstances, your resources, your abilities, or whatever are the reason that you're not succeeding? Or are you going to flip that coin and realize that those can be the reasons why you do succeed? And just in that single flip, in that little mind shift, that's all it takes. There's unlimited potential power. So I hope this brought you guys a little bit of value. If it did, awesome. Let me know. Reach out. Find me on Twitter. Find me on Instagram. Find me on YouTube. Wherever. Leave a comment. Let me know. Engage with me. Love to hear from you guys. Now, as always, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to be with me, because I know you could spend it doing a million other things and your time is valuable. So I just want to say thank you again from the deep down depths of my bowels. And as always, I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Stay hyper-focused. Let me try that again. Stay hyper-focused. Until then, my friend.